Bank of America Institute is out with a new consumer checkpoint this morning. They find Americans are increasingly trying to stretch their dollars, with spending growth in grocery and clothing stores mostly focused on value products, and that's outpacing the overall spending. They also note an uptick in service spending last month, like event-driven international, with a 27% year-on-year rise in spending in Paris and surrounding Olympic cities. That was compared to the 23% bump that London saw during the 2012 Olympics. For more here, let's bring in Liz Everett Krisberg. She's head of the Bank of America Institute. Steve Liesman is here with us as well. Liz, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So much to unpack, but going back to the point Rick was just making about yields in stocks and so forth, it really all comes down to strong and growing economy, or what are the takeaways you see?
Well, I think there's a couple things to look at. First, when you look at the spending, our credit card spending numbers weren't strong in July, but they weren't deteriorating. And I think that's an important distinction. They were down 0.4, but in June they were down 0.5. So it's not, again, not deteriorating.
Year on year or month on month?
That was year on year. Month on month, it actually ticked up 0.3.
Huh.
So again, I'm feeling not.
The sky is falling.
The sky is not falling. But I think what is important to look at, and speaking of things falling, is the consumer spending growth has really been tracking inflation as inflation has come down. And why I think that really matters, when you look at the overall CPI, obviously it includes things like shelter that people aren't putting on their cards. But if you dig into what I'll call the card-centric categories, gas, airlines, hotels, we are seeing prices falling there. So it does make some sense that you would see the total card spending also come down without a big cause of concern.
So in other words, volumes might be the same.
Volumes might be the same. And in fact, we're seeing the volumes essentially be flat to up about 1%. So that is something I think is important to look at. But you brought up another point, which I think is key, is that when we look at the breakdown within categories like grocers, like apparel, which are actually two of what I'll call the card-centric categories where we are not seeing prices falling, we are seeing a greater shift to value brands. So people are not necessarily feeling as hunky-dory and therefore are trying to make their dollar go further and see some of that growth in the
It all
value.
makes sense. I think, Stephen, a lot of people are joking today, okay, well, what about the emergency Fed rate cuts everyone was calling for on Monday when the sky was falling in the jobs report? But this all to me kind of is part of the same story. It's a story of shift to value, of feeling a little bit of pressure, maybe excess savings and so forth running out. I don't see why the Fed can't or shouldn't cut in that environment, maybe not intra-meeting.
I need to start off, make a critical comment about this segment. You're underselling it. There are traders out there right now on the edge of their seat, so hungry for economic data.
It's true.
We are in a data desert right now, to the point where what Rick was talking about, did you see what happened? I have never seen the 10-year move the way it moved on a nothing jobless claims this morning.
It was not nothing. It was a great data point, but I take your point. Now it's become a top-tier 50-point S&P swing.
It was as if it was GDP and jobs all together with a big swing, because we're desperate to know. Was Monday the right signal or Friday the right signal? Was the rebound the right signal? We don't know. So anything body comes in and says,
here's some data.
Here.
Yeah.
And also very smart what Liz was saying, the idea of be careful when you see things declining in this disinflationary environment. It may not mean weakness. It could mean, and I'll layer in my segment, which was things are weird because it's political season and people have different attitudes going on. There could be some effect there. So I think my read of how the Fed read what's happened was, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to fold my arms. I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm not going to panic here. I have indicated as the Fed that I'm ready to move in September. How much I move is contingent upon what we get in data. I will point out tomorrow morning we have our retail monitor. I don't think it's going to look a whole lot different from Liz's, but I can't give it up right now. And then next week we have the retail sales report. And you know what the big day is going to be? It's going to be Thursday jobless claims.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
where we're at.
Absolutely.
Until we start to get more serious data. And I'm sorry to be critical.
Well, thanks.
Go.
I like that kind of backhanded compliment. But two pieces of critical data. And on Friday, when we saw the really soft jobs report, the first thing our team said was, wait a minute, what's driving unemployment? Is this because we're seeing more people file for unemployment?
Enter the workforce.
And the answer is, in Bank of America data, number of households that are getting unemployment direct deposited in is up slightly. But when I say slightly, I mean slightly off of very low numbers. So we are not seeing signs.
We had an influx of workers into the workforce on Friday. It was something that drove up the unemployment rate. There was also an increase in the unemployed. So you want to be careful because the dynamism of the economy will be tested in the sense that these folks come in, can we put them to work?